The king of Mushroom Kingdom said to Lancelot in all certaindom, "The princess has the enemy of spores, taken from all the land save the lores. Venture forth and save the shrooms, then from this castle have one of the rooms. Look at you with arms and hands, for one of your fingers take one these bands, a plain one or simply rubied, jeweled around or thrice bumblebeed. With the ring you pick, remember and place faith I have in you to save the mushroom race. Bowing with brow down low to show honor, the how began to glow. Out of the castle doors into the sun, to the smither, if you could call it a run. The smither's wife, Mrs. Lion's Mane, swept here and there since they hadn't had rain. With furnace dust on her face she cast eye on our adventurer gaining nigh. Is Bromsworth in, the master smith? I'm on quest for the king, so presence with the man who changes a life with every swing. I bid and bid, please your sporiness, to him me bring. Mrs. Lion's Mane blinked thrice, once to the sun and to Lancelot twice. He's inside working since before I woke. He asked for peace, so reveal not we spoke. Lancelot the Third pushed open the door and saw Bromsworth Lion's Mane shroom to the core. 'Twas easy to see whence came the dust on his face. Swing, an ember flew out the armor and grace. The king, Lancelot started to say. I know why you're here, he barked without delay. For armor uncrunchable, unbewitchable, and from demon curse uncatchable. Poised to swing, but glancing aside, saw how presence wielding was our hero's stride. Upon checking the humor of the champ, called out to him his spirits to amp. This armor would protect you like a queen. If you by misstep fell in a deep ravine, you'll decompose before you see it rust. You'll rattle around before it breaks from thrust. My dear boy, look at you, for how could ever ferocity through you overcome evil when it needs more luster? Just make them laugh until they bluster. Be the punchline no one saw, at them speeding above the law. This is a war of wits. Do you think shrooms are a bunch of gits? Swing, I didn't mean that, but see. Swing, how every act raises what be. Shrooms all know what maketh glad. The sun and moon, all lass and lad. I've embedded the sun's saffron rays into this armor I give on days of days. It will protect you from 5 deadly ends. The lines of fate, like always, to my hammer bends. From falling down mountain, from falling in sea, from flame and whate'er behind you may be, and finally from clumsy's clutch, your body and head be saved and such. Swing, swing, it's done, it's done. The fight's as good as won. To the hero, arm quick extended, the armor given, not just lended. Having received the mushroom's gift, his aim like the sun began to lift. For a moment he glowed, and a veil was torn. I know what call the mushrooms make at morn. Shh, fixing all, Bromsworth then shushed. Lancelot promptly out the oak door pushed. Mrs. Lion's mane nowhere to be seen. He ventured the only way he could glean. A shadow crossed the path then tore. He looked up to see a blackbird soar. When he thought of prompt alliance, the blackbird screeched with all due presence. Heading north, the king's words recalled how at the story of the princess, of her taking in that mess, the spores at nighttime bawled and bawled. Psst! Hey stranger, yes you! I see you starting adventure anew. From round a house that fungi came to sell our hero goods without shame. You need a print, my dude, a colony of spores, civilization crude. Each print has millions of spores. For culturing, it's about all I got in my stores. You must be salesman Mogi. The king scribed you helpful yet shadowy. Lancelot took 3 prints into a bottle where could be seen no hints. Lancelot to do the work, northbound returned, head still in murk. His thoughts returned to the spore's enemy, the circle of life involving mycology. To maketh a pun or not, the thing that wriggleth and eats rot. Is laughter higher than wrong? When these eat the part that makes shrooms strong. Mindlessly he passed the city gates until he notices the audience waits. His mind on how to slay the beast with humor and set free the dame of East. What would make a wriggler laugh? The thought maybe of folks seeing them in cowboy hat, grinning riffraff. Lancelot'll save that a gem. And walking east as roadway bends, thought up words that by all sense rends, airy one in animals' hearts to smithereens. The hero now broached side forest greens, and planting foot where lore before now told, entered the gardens from which was taken fungi's princess, the grace of mold. And down the trees wept as if hope forsaken. What happened here? Why the drear? The trees all turned away with tear. Lancelot dropped his head, then quickening into the garden sped. Orange hermit mushrooms and scented lavender grew around and made to render warmer scene than entry offered. He kept the hermit shrooms unbothered. Forward, down, up, forward. A-B, A-B, start water toward. And once he made it to the river, tween man and bee proved who was faster. And looking at the lapis water fair, made sound conclusions of mindful care. This river must be the spot where Miss Shroom was snatched by the King of Rot. Lancelot the Third glanced. He could see how Lepiota, the royal germ, was taken captive by the great worm. What words did he use to bruise her over? How long before she ran for cover? Lancelot the Third hastened step to see in his mind another rep. Uncouth grass and broken trees, with the river's soliloquy on breeze. One blade of grass and then another told the real story without blather. Over east he pulled her off. We still heard her voice, buttons soft. raising head and eyes to the east, ran to track the ruleless beast. And over yonder there was a hole through the earth where the villain stole. Rushing up to the mouth of the cave, Lancelot's heart grew brave. A clear path forward off to save the princess who resistance surely gave. 30 feet wide from side to side, he strolled within without a ride. As soon as Lancelot entered, his armor from within light glimmered, and suddenly he was on the trail of the single foot-printed animal. Forward and forward, how hard to trace, a beast that upends dirt in every place. 1 hour he tarried halfway there, a thought of leaving he wouldn't dare. The smell grew different, he could tell. He could swear he even heard a yell. The smell of smoke, soot, and pollution arose from the back of the destruction. Another wounded, leave it be. Lancelot and mole people began to see. They were putting out fires, running to fro. Lancelot meandered into the throw. A mole collided with Lancelot, a short-furred mole with turquoise goggle. Human, you know the moles are in fear. What could you possibly be doing here? Lancelot recounted the tale of the king from whose honor he hailed. You are in the wrong place. Your route to here retrace. For the horror came and went. His course we bent, but not before he wounded 100 mole, smashed buildings in and wrecked the whole. His constant cursing was inky black. We only thwarted him and turned him back. Before Lancelot left, he tarried, but from duty's quest he never varied. He negotiated for reinforcements, as many as can from the inhabitants, to follow the signs that he leaves on the path of what he believes is the track to the marauding beast. 'Twill also lead to the displaced ruler of the east. Back along the tunnel our hero came. The prince's memory almost made him exclaim. From the bottle he took one print and selected the one with a bluish tint. At garden's edge he made substrate and perforated lids which could evaporate, cultured the spores for maturation, for one day an army migration. He chose the print that germinates the slowest so the regiment consolidates. 1 full lunar month from now, on that field if the plan will allow. He set the jars in rows half in light, spoiled not with dust and free of blight. He counted jars 100 twice, 'twould number in many and would suffice. He turned southeast, ran for half a league, found another escape made aft the blitzkrieg. The days remaining light gaining low, he made tunnel's entry with armor aglow. For minutes he walked, turning away grim. So far the journey was safe and trim. Roots and roots for thousands of feet. The passage was cool with little heat. Feeling the day as being made full of adventure, in 2 hours' time sleep may lull. Long story short, Lancelot found the hilly people that tickle. A broad ant kingdom he never knew. the vile beast had visited too. He stayed with them for 7 days, made friends on either side of the maze. He helped repair the kitchen too, a state to feed the ample crew. From the ants' efforts to save the eggs, a new army in time now begs. He learned the ants call their tunnels sectors, like the 3 in their bodies' structures. He got involved in their philosophy, but got cold feet with the scenting ceremony. Everything was overshadowed by the 1,000 ants resting hollowed, due to the creature fearsome, when the ants fought with luster awesome. Cuckoo, Wei-Wei, and Nini were each the queen and advisee. Long Long and Live Live dressed the sectors in Roy G. Biv. Queen Even Antenna ordered ants to prepare for war as season grants. Lancelot laid out the plan to meet in battle with all who can. 21 days from here he'll need reinforcements of the Antly Creed to descend on the final field, with every soldier evenly keeled. The splendid Even Antenna ordered for the fastest scout unretired. No nonsense was ready to run with the fastest legs of anyone. Lancelot and No Nonsense departed for the Ant Kingdom's fence. Blurring tunnel and wind and hair, heroic were that mighty pair. They broke daylight to see broad land, a valley down to sprawling sand. The wind whistled arid o'er the desert's entry, the doomed sand shore. Straight as a ruler, that evil feller tore a trench with sporty valor. Due east, bent on villainous task, now for a time our 2 in the sun will bask. Down the path with tufts of grass, a road for them to lightning pass. At the desert's edge was waiting for them a battalion 4 in number of scorpion men. Freeze, ant-mounted warrior. Lancelot thought it was quite cool. We are this desert's barrier. Lancelot looked to the line straight as a rule. Ahem, that was a wonder, for have we ever heard the ground of thunder? Some men you are, excuses aside, show us to where the outlaw hide. At once, they said, and gear equipped, the last of the water to their lips was dripped. The charge the 4 scorpion helmsmen led, in the wake where the scoundrel fled. Cool as an ice cube Lancelot was, on the back of No Nonsense. So cool was he, sense thought of applause, and free they rode, he and Lance. They came upon the radial town. Scoured rocks stood up and shone. With what reverence they had built their town. Nighttime terror was how their town was known. But something was wrong, something amiss. The trench through nighttime terror was this: a ravaging, a tragedy, upended well-being and wounded civility. To understand everything, Lancelot stayed 6 days until no more be delayed. He got the ruler to say he would send in 15 days 300 scorpions for the battle's turning, for Lancelot was learning that the scorpions were strong, and the wriggler had done them a wrong. The scorpion town cheered Lancelot 3 times and danced a fiddle, and to the easterly mountains our hero braved, mission again and behind him waved. No nonsense made little ado of taming desert of washed out hue, and now another mighty hole straight through the mountain it tole. By 4 o'clock by shadow degree they passed mountain now bordering tree, and Lancelot dismounted to stop here to make an army of mushroom top. Repeating each step with care, he cultured mushrooms with copious dare. These will be another regiment to storm the field belligerent, and turning woodland to face a trench through forest to hiding place. The mighty pair set off as should, following trench through dormant wood. An hour's travel they pressed on into the shades where Fawn had gone. Tinkling, glinting, and glimmering, the fairy town found our hero entering. They found the town of Rainbow Tea. Hundreds of fairies began to see. Fairy men and fairy women showed them the work of the evil villain. He smashed tree homes and crushed the school, stuck face at them like brazen ghoul. He smashed apart their magic shop, and from their powder gained a hop. Lancelot comforted them. He recounted the king's sad story's stem. He stayed with them for yet 5 days, earned fairy bow and learned their ways. The fairy queen consulted the court and offered aid of magic sort. Just as we help lean evolution, we will fight in this revolution. Lancelot recounted the plan to everyone of the fairy clan. Join us in battle in the time of 10 days. Help bend the treacherous battle's rays. Of all the soldiers and from all the stores, whate'er you need is ready yours. Lancelot bowed and said intense, till then, and left on no nonsense. They traversed the forest by midday, came to shrubs that on the border lay. Carefully they questily progressed, continued on and mission pressed. City strand of dangling web, the spiders in began to ebb. They told tales of the evil giant, carrying a shroom compliant. Lancelot nearly wept at Lepioda's resolve of being kidnapped. Nearly the only thing that was safe was the sack of an army to strafe. Lancelot stayed 4 days, saw webs rebuilt, watched arachnid plays, with an army promised true, in 6 days' time way more than few. No nonsense set out with lance, to follow the trench straight through the fence. Surely the sky had hopes of what was planned, for why would it show bright o'er the land? Now to wet ponds and puddles our hero this barely befuddles. A fish hatchery very wide, a view of some fish he leaned and tried. Not till the heart of the ponds did he see All the fish, artist, thinker, and retiree. The fish he had fortune found were swimming the ponds around and round. Then Kingfish popped his head up gruff. He accosted Lancelot with a huff. Do you know where your armor comes? From the man that knows the plan and all the outcomes. Lancelot straightened up, never dropped ear till after dinner's cup. He worked hard to please the king, but the only way was in quest remembering. The fish were happy until one day did their snack in giant form had bid through their land to the east, to Martha's vineyard where he's having a feast. Lancelot stayed 3 days ready. For battle he was assuming more duty, still making up what makes to laugh when it's refrain one takes, vowing to avenge the spawning bed that was run down in the villain's tread. Lancelot thought of words, some of which only make sense to birds. On the third day Lancelot, on no nonsense from Hatchery's middle, dashed off quickly to follow the trail, trusting in Bromsworth to never fail. The land grew different now. There were starting fewer a tree, in little country houses sitting free. They continued on till they heard a meow. This is our land, no entry till we deal with what has come to be. Turn away, human, this soul is ours, to deal with and show our powers. Lancelot looked at the 2 guard cats, the kind with claws and that eats the rats. That's why we're here, to free his captive and his rebuking oversee. Lancelot showed them the ring he obtained from the Mushroom King. They let him pass and he was shown midnight alley of feline tone. Two days he stayed and talked, with catfolk on paces walked. The cat's ruler promised warrior, in over 200 in number. He didn't learn much from the stay, only that the clan started from a stray. He left with vigorous goodbye, rode no nonsense and land zipped by. With mind on quest and eyes to the sun, across the plains the day almost done. Lancelot removed the bottle, took the last print according to model. He took the time, environment, prepare. He cultured spores from here to there. These would fruit in one day's time, fragile, but should able make the climb. By sundown they made it to the borders of Martha's vineyard to do the honors of the shame and belittling of the great worm off crueler wriggling. They met the dogs of Barkmont and arranged all things for the battle's front. The canines were ready to defend their home, to lunge and rend. Lancelot reviewed the maps, the plan of how the brawl would elapse. To rouse their spirits with some light, they kept lanterns burning through all the night. Lancelot tossed and turned, humorous verse in his dreams had burned, lines which now the battle would travel, how Mishroom saving would unravel. Timbuktu and Jones's locker, could on his lips be heard his whisper. He dreamed of the earth shaking, everyone for cover was running. He awoke in a canvas tent, to the door flap light-footed went, for the ground was still a-rumbling. What he saw sure was humbling. The armies on the horizon were looming, from western wind were choruses booming. Ink-cap mushrooms led the charge, on the backs of cats both fair and large. Walking fish in ranks neat made, with spiders crawling to the raid. Squads of fairies the size of a pin, with moral mushrooms marching in. The clan from nighttime terror raced, ahead of the ants that interlaced. Oyster mushrooms big and strong, the mole people completed the throng. Lancelot delivered a speech, to the backmost his voice did reach. Let's bend this worm's dark plot, completely left not with spot. He's eaten mountains of dirt, let's now deliver him some hurt. It was suspiciously short and sweet. History may have shortened it for our repeat. The armies moved to battle storm, to the battle's contours right conform. They mustered nerves and tamed each tremble. Critters brave like Camelot resemble. No villain, but all stood round. They waited weary for some signs. In Mary Martha's yard of vines, they all looked unto the ground. Lancelot looked and knew. He shouted, he surrenders, he's back down and surely cowers. For one named the Great Worm surely has put plans short. No! Boom! The dear earth shook, like a businessman reading a book. To calm his nerves in mid-flight, sailing turbulence o'er the ocean at night. It took a whole moment for the great worm to dig up the floor, 200 feet long with sign of the princess on his spine. Surrender to you? Bah! Death placed me above the law. All the armies tramped their foot at look of princess safely put. Make this easy, surrender now, Lancelot had with humor vow. And we promise we won't bait you. Lancelot had laughter's view. Why would I do that when I have what e'er one wants without tie? The villain sneered and scoffed, telling him his jokes 'twould need loft. I hope you've read your books. Avoid the endings always told. Give back what is she you hold. Gosh man, I'm saving you from hooks. Enough, we fight, little man. This brawl 'twill make me her fan. Lancelot made battle ready, shrugging off rudeness and the petty. Lancelot called out for fairy dust, or the army's priority must. Each critter grew various sizes, bigger, watch as the army rises. The moles were 50 times bigger, the ants were 300 times bigger, the scorpions were 50 times bigger, the spiders were 100 times bigger, the fish were 10 times bigger, The cats were 10 times bigger. The dogs were 2 times bigger. All the shrooms were 50 times bigger. And they all flew up in the air. Leading the army was the blazing pair. Lance Little and No Nonsense flew villains square with danger dense. Before the army could act, the Great Worm, by historic fact, ate Lepiota as a snack. A hearty belch was in no lack. The hero stopped and wide-eyed stared. Lip trembled and nostril flared. By the great Mushroom King, what have you done? Since spring me, use calf. Ha 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 ha, the Great Worm laughed. Lance Little shrunk himself smaller. Forward flew in his mouthy holler, as if by chance on friendly draft. By the foul ancient worm, what have you done? Enjoy my lower half. Down the worm's tubes, around a corner, the battle outside sounded like mortar. He caught up with the princess in the gut next to some acetaminophen. Princess, we have to get out. The only way is to retrace our route. She raised her hands and exclaimed, the hero of which, my dear, father promised in day of fear. She ran and to face danger deigned. Why is he mad? This is fickle. Lance Little blew up patienceless. Why'd you say that, princess? Now we have to give his heart a tickle. Lance Little and Lepiota made progress iota by iota up the long esophagus of the vermin type Saprophagus. They hung a right at Hartway Road and found the well-kept neat abode of Canker, the tree-green heartworm, who gave the heart its merm. Lance Little tickled the heart. The shock sent them back with a start. The great worm thrashed and laughed. The two shot out as if on raft. Out of the great worm into the day, victorious, if you could call it the way. The two laughed, clung to the ground, to find what happened, turned around. The villain was in web tied up. Fish were slapping his face about. There were fierce scratch marks, like he had been handled by narcs. Tied down and couldn't have moved, the spiders in number fearlessly proved. Spider's web may be stronger than duct tape, as think the human clan. Lance Little the Third's eyes opened. He summoned the dogs of Barkmont too, a penning of a fabulous letter new, to spell the plan of what to do with the villain whose ending is due. We beseech thee, listen please, for the love of Doge come hear our pleas. Evil has till now abode, unquestioned hence here's our ode. Help us to contender vanquish, howe'er you do it will be hush-hush. But do this smallish idea we bring, a solution for your considering, to use your tools whate'er they're called, to remove that which greedily mauled the princess of the mushrooms, and do away with that which looms. Forgive us if our ignorance shows we are in the pang of mighty woes. Shove the vermin in a rocket. By all means ensure to lock it. Send him off to cascading stars, or maybe drop him off at Mars. If he there were set to roam, the soil you may yet call a home. After 30 years when you make it there, he'll be dead with organisms rare, spread across the land where then you can grow the beginnings of your spacely clan. They signed it with a paw print and called for a canine gent. They gave the message to a Siberian husk to deliver twitterly to Elon Musk. For dogs were man's best friend, which humans' playful voices extend. Full circle, this shows how man is in communications lines sure ran. Martha let them use the phone. They waited patiently for some tone. The vermin laid, wrapped up price payer. They added on web another layer. You know how legends nowadays go. Communications delay in plot they sow. To explain it away, why the penned? The letter on Twitter had to trend. Ring, 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 4 rings. Was it the man who makes spacely things? Hello, this is Lance a Little. Hello, this is Elon. We heard your proposal. The commanders in the room brightened. General Fresh Salmon nearly fainted. We have a window starting soon. A starship passing up the moon. Off to Mars in science's name. A mission wrapped in Voyager fame. We have cargo room on Starship. Your quarrel we have way to tip. We'll send one of our trucks to pick up the vermin, will there be quick? From Boca Chica, Texas we'll send the vermin which now transmutes the friend. They ended the call and shouted for joy as fate was being rerouted. In a few days' time they were ready. With the weather outside, the rocket was steady. A starship wide and tested, like Yoda's force to do or not, had passed its predecessor in every lot. This prototype in space won't be bested. Lance Little got to view up close the rocket factory new. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Starship live. The blasted concrete was the main focus of which the reporters complain. The great worm spat obscenities, none of which were mercy pleas. The mushrooms gave out whooping trump in getting rid of the villainous chump. The rocket trail hung in the air in signal of battle, one more than fair. And the rocket's red glare, the worm cursing through air, gave proof through the fight that a laugh was still there. The critters returned to their homes to start updating their history tomes. Lepiota returned to the castle, and merry life began without hassle. The Mushroom King to Lance a Little question asked him in casual riddle, whom here receives the hand, for whom this battle was cast across many land. I saw only one being that kept resolve, and to reaction never leapt. A hermit shroom from nearby forest, kept silent with meditation's wrist. The Mushroom King hummed, on the throne his fingers drummed. Lancelot gained one of the rooms, where every time he's kept to protect the shrooms. Lancelot is made possible by listeners like you.